Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to whatever I end up calling this. This is a bit of something different for me. My name is Killjoy, and today I want to look at the Starcraft 2 balance patch that is going to be coming later this year after the WCS Grand Finals happen. So before we get into this, Starcraft is a game that I very much enjoy playing. Starcraft 2, I should say. And it's a game that I enjoy playing, so does Mark, so does Fruity. But recently I've been feeling a bit like quite, I suppose, tilted on it, and I've definitely got a bit of a love-hate relationship going on with this game because I love this game and I think this game is great, but I also get incredibly frustrated with it and the fact that I'm at a point where I want to enjoy the game more, but I have to put more hours in, which is kind of difficult for me to do sometimes. And you know, I have my own personal frustrations with the game, and I really wanted for the longest time a new balance patch to come out, just mainly because I wanted to see the meta get shifted. Now, I am looking at this as a casual and for someone who wants to watch these changes in actions. I am no way qualified to talk about balance, and I kind of left this video for a little while because I was going to do it earlier, but I'm glad I left it until now because I was watching the recent WCS, and I was very annoyed that a lot of the Terrans were losing, and I don't like TVC personally. I find that's my weakest matchup, and I get sick of watching Zergs win. It's not to say that they're a bad race or it's not as skillful, it's just purely that I don't enjoy that race, and I like Terran a lot. Like, that's my favourite race in the game. Protoss I enjoy as well, but like, I don't mind. But like TVZ, like, I know in Korea Terran is like super good at the moment, but rest of the world seems to be like mainly there's a lot of good foreign Zerg players. But just bear that in mind going into this. I am very biased, but I want to look at this and go through it and give my opinions on what I just think about these changes, and kind of like looking forward to which ones I'm seeing, which ones I'm interested in trying out myself, and so on. Let's start with the Battlecruiser. Now, this is interesting because I've been saying for a while that a Battlecruiser change would be cool because it doesn't get used a lot, and I'm not expecting to see the Battlecruiser suddenly turn up in every matchup because this is designed, I think, this patch mainly for late game. But the Battlecruiser, if I had the idea of that you give it the ability to either splash damage or you give it the ability to fire at multiple units at once, things like that. So what Blizzard have actually done with it is they've removed the random delay. I'll show the video in a sec. They've removed the random delay, which means the gun fires at a consistent speed. They've reduced its anti-air laser down by 1 damage. Yamato cannon reduced to 240, so it used to be 300, it's now 240, and it can move while shooting. So this is huge. Moving while shooting there's only a couple of units I think in the game that can do this. I could be wrong. I think at the moment it's just Cyclone with Lock-On and Phoenix. So if you look at the video, you'll see that this bottom one shows you just moving and firing and murdering things. They've said that the whole point of this new Battlecruiser is it's meant to be really good against ground. That's kind of the idea, because you see in the top one, like, the fire, something moves away, it gets kited too easily. Whereas now, you know, can take out a lot of stuff, has a far more, like, shots coming out. So it's actually quite buffed in a lot of ways, very, very powerful. So I was initially really annoyed about this because for me, I was like, I don't want to see this thing just become... To me, a Battlecruiser is all about being this huge tank of a craft, tanking so much damage and being able to dish out a lot of damage. Now, in StarCraft 1, much slower fire rate, but much higher damage output with Yamato. Now, they're trying to make it so it's less anti-air. Now, I don't know how this is going to affect it without seeing it, because I need to see what these are like. This is the one change in this patch that I really want to see the most, and see how it's changed and actually play around with it myself. Whereas this is the only thing I'm kind of baffled by. They've changed it because they say down here that they don't. It won't instantly kill void rays, if I remember rightly. That was something to do with something about that in there saying about now you're no longer be able to one-shot void rays, but you're pretty much you know, do a lot of damage to it. So yeah, you know, like, it does make, there we go, lowering it to this, so this doesn't kill out void ray straight away, but like heavily damages it, and it'll still do fairly good damage against corruptors and carriers. But like, to me, I don't know how I feel about this until again I see it in action, because I always think Yamato cannon is like, if you get Battlecruisers, that's why you're doing it, using it for Yamato, and you're blasting things up. And because we don't see Battlecruisers at the moment, I was like, I don't think this is going to make a blind bit of difference. I'm you know, like I said, I have no experience in talking about balance and things, but like this and this is what I'm most interested in. This I don't like. This I find odd, but if you want to make it more anti-ground, then fair enough. The only reason this annoys me is I always just imagine in my head that Battlecruiser is just good at everything. But like, you know, in terms of balance, you can't really have a unit good at everything. I think the thing was with the Battlecruiser, the reason we don't see it anymore is back when Ravens had point defense drones and Seeker missile. When that got when that got nerfed, it actually nerfed the Battlecruiser. Not because the Battlecruiser got a nerf, it's just the way that the Ravens used to work really helped. Like if you had Raven Battlecruiser back in the day, you were unstoppable because you just point defense drones everywhere and just Yamato everything, and you know, it was ridiculous. You know, clearly that was the right thing to do to change that, but it was unfortunate that it changed the Battlecruiser and we just don't see it. So, you know, I'm hoping we're going to see this used more late game and be more effective. Obviously, I'm not sure about two of the changes, but we'll see. Moving on then, we've got the Widowmine. Now, this is something I've personally wanted for a while. They've basically made it so that drilling claws will permanently cloak your Widowmines while burrowed, and I assume this means that once they fire, they'll stay burrowed. The reason why I really wanted this was because ever since the change where Widowmines, you know, once they fire, you have to pick them up and run away. I'm really bad at that, like really bad, and so I'm not really going to use them early game. And like I like using them in TVZ because I think having a couple of Widowmines just in a few certain places can really help. You know, just get rid of some Banelings, get rid of some Zerglings. Real powerful unit. You know, this change makes sense because it means you can't just drop them in the middle of the enemy's base early game and they're invisible again. This means at a certain time you can now have them cloaked, and that means if the other person isn't getting some kind of detection, then they're going to get hit real badly with it. And I really like this, and this is my favourite change in this entire patch, and hopefully we'll start to see Widowmines used a bit more often. I'm not expecting them to suddenly have a massive comeback, but for me, who's someone who's a very low tier player, like this is great. This means that I don't have to worry as much. I can get a few, do some hopefully fun things before the enemy, whoever I'm playing against, decides to get detection. Cyclone armor is reduced from 1 to 0. This is a weird one. Like, it makes sense what they're saying here is that so Zerglings and Marines and units like that can kill them off much quicker. I really don't know how much of a difference this is going to make. I don't like it only because the problem with a lot of the Terran units is a lot of things don't actually have armor, or they do start with one armor, but they don't feel like tanky enough. And you'll see that with the Thor later on, or the next unit we get to. The idea that it's a big hulking machine and it dies like super quickly, and I know in the way the game's balanced, you know, it probably makes a lot of sense, but in times of like lore and things, it's very bizarre. It's like tanks I don't think start with any armor, and it's very odd. Thor changing the armor from 2 to 1. There we go. I mean, what the idea is that it's weaker against things like Lings and anything that can rush it basically, whereas obviously heavy units are going to have a harder time with them. Now they're changing the 250mm Punisher cannons, which I think makes sense because they don't you see some use with it. I feel like the Thors are in a weird place because they do serious amounts of damage versus armoured anyway, and you saw like the anti-air gun, but mainly the splash one, and now they're trying to make it so that the Punisher cannon, as you can see, weapon speed changed, and the fact that damage has been increased and versus massive, they're trying to make it so it's much more effective against massive units. So I think that's like Colossus carriers. You can see in this video actually against the Tempest just like how much more damage it does. Tempest has had a change as well, so it's got a lot less health, fires that bit quicker. You can see like the Thor's not going to get taken out, which is nice. So, you know, that's a cool little buff. But and also they're reducing the Javelin missile, which is the area effect attack, to a little bit smaller, so it's not quite as powerful against Mutalisks as it is. Because I mean, the Thor originally was just sort of had one air attack that was very good against Mutalisks and very light units, and that's kind of why you built it. And now they're getting rid of the armored tag and shoving the massive tag on it, so it's better against the big capital ships. And they say in here about Vikings basically being, you know, yeah, Vikings fighting armoured, and you know, you have your Thors fighting massive. Makes sense. Again, I'm not overly keen on this, but you know, we'll have to see how it goes. I think it'll be interesting to see that Thor's coming out and being used a lot more against late game, so that'd be cool. Medevacs, High capacity fuel tanks no longer increase duration of ignite afterburners. Basically what this means is you used to have this upgrade and it would increase the length of time you're boosting away. Now it just reduces the cooldown, which, you know what, that seems probably better, because you don't really, once you've boosted and got out of the way, you're done. You know, you're either going to die or you're going to get out, and you usually do that in the few seconds that you have afterburners on. Reducing that down means you can just use it a lot more often. I feel like anyone at high level anyway it's going to be really useful, because you can pick up, drop, like reel back and forth very quick. You know, and the enemy's got to realise that if you've got that upgrade, you know, you've got a very limited window before they're going to sod off. And then now being able to heal units under the effect of Phoenix Graviton Beam, interesting change. I don't know how that's going to affect things, but it'll be an interesting change. This is a cool one. Banshee Hyperflight Rotors upgrade reduced. Now, I actually really like this upgrade. It is quite expensive for what it is, but the fact that if you've got Cloak and this, you can bomb around the battlefield doing a lot of scouting with Banshees, and you know, you can do a lot of hit and runs with them. I really like it as an upgrade. I think it's really good. I think the fact that they've reduced it's really cool. That's a definite buff. I mean, we'll see if it makes much of an impact on the game. I think it's an underutilized upgrade, so I really hope to see more of that. This is an upgrade that I like to get when I've had Banshees and things. So yeah, not really much to say on that. I think that's a really good buff. I mean, it's a good buff because it's 100 less resources to put into it, so all's good. Raven, now this makes so much sense. Raven anti-armor missile reduced to 0 damage. Anti-armor missile now will reduce Protoss shields as well as armor. So why this is good is because the Raven has, I think in its current state now, is a very, very good support unit. You can use the anti-armor missile to reduce armor, you can use the turret to do damage, or you can use the lockdown missile, the scrambler missile, whatever it's called, to shut down certain units. And now the Raven's in a place where I feel like it should have been, you know, it used to be, and they went through a very weird phase. Like anti-armor missile used to do 30 damage and splash, then they reduced it to 15. And to be honest, Terran splashes are kind of weird. Like some of the splash damage units they have, they don't seem like there's a lot of them. But I think the reason why this makes more sense is that anti-armor missile reduces armor by 3. I think it's -3 or something like that. This makes it more effective against Protoss shields as well. So you know you're no longer having just to plink away at the shields while they're still on normal and they are not. But this just means that like enemy, you know, when this gets fired off, it means that you engage then and there, or the enemy tries to retreat. It's a very good skill to have, which you've got energy for it, because it puts you or your opposition in them in a bad place, because either they have to retreat or lose their army's going to die much quicker, or you use it and just rush in. And I like this a lot. I think this is, you know, it's no longer about doing damage, it's about reducing, it's a support thing. You either do this, or maybe you drop down some turrets, or maybe you scramble a few units so they can't use their skills. Great change. I know a lot of people will be annoyed because they'll be like, oh, what about, like, we've got no splash on this thing. Doesn't need it. It makes more sense for this to be changed so that Protoss shields are now effective. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works. Neo Steel Frame, Structure Armor being combined into one. Makes a lot of sense really, because nobody ever got Neo Steel Frame. Nobody ever wanted the extra space in bunkers. Bunkers don't really get a lot of use late game. Like, not like to have 2 extra people in it anyway. As a low tier player, this is great because it means you can put more people in there, but campaign, great. But yeah, structure armor is pretty useful. But combining both of them makes far more sense. Alright, Zerg. So we've seen Zergling and Hydralisk. Unburrow speed changed. Unburrow around the laser. This makes a lot of sense. I watched a few videos on this and they were just saying that they're saying here that, you know, they can pop up quicker to catch things flying away. I think that's the main use, because you don't really see a lot of burrowed Zerglings and Hydralisk, not that I'm aware of, but I think it's really cool. Like, you know, burrow is a thing that should be used more often, because it forces any player to, you know, have detection, but also, you know, like you see burrowed banelings and infestors and roaches, but other units I don't think can move underground. But yeah, if you've got an army set up there and the enemy comes along and you just surround them, makes a lot of sense. I think it's really cool in terms of the how this gets used. I think it'll be a lot of fun to see if people start burrowing. I mean, burrow still takes the same amount of time, but unburrow, like, things popping up a lot quicker, being able to do damage. Hydralisk, health decreased from 90 to 85. I mean, I know it's only 5 health difference. They are quite squishy already, so this is going to make them in a really interesting place, because now you've got to be super careful. Like, Storm's going to do a lot of damage to them, Siege Tanks are going to do a lot of damage to them, Widowmine shot. You know, like a lot of the splash damage abilities are really going to hurt these things even more now. And like I said, it's only a 5 health difference, but that might be like half a second, you know, you've lost doing it. I'm not sure how I feel about this, because I never really thought personally the Ultralisk was in a bad place. Like, I don't think it was that. I mean, it's a powerful unit for sure, but maybe they want this to be more of a, like, I think they say that they don't want it to be just like all Ultralisks and actually have it more mixed in with other units. So infested Terran cast range 7 to 8. I haven't seen this used much. So if this makes Infested Terran more popular, then fair enough. Like, I'm really bad with Zerg, and Zerg is my worst race, so I'm never going to find out a lot of these changes. I will probably give them a try. As someone who plays Terran now, I hate the fact that Zerg gets 3 units, but that is part of their race. That's part of how they work. Probably makes a lot of sense. Maybe it'll be able to, you know, they won't get... it'll make them more used. You see Infestors come back again. I haven't really seen them used as much of late, so fingers crossed. This is a cool upgrade. This is the Ultralisk. It gets a new buff where it gets a 10% increase off of creep, and you'll see this here. He's running away, getting spiked, maybe gets an attack in. Now he definitely gets an attack in. You see him kill this guy. I think this is a really good idea. I think having Ultralisks a little bit quicker off of creep makes a lot of sense. I mean, Ultralisks should be scary. If you see Ultralisk coming in your base and you need to get out there, then yeah, they should absolutely have that. And like, it seems like a fairly not too long to get upgrade. I don't know how many people get it. Seems reasonably priced. Seems like a good idea. I hope this gets used a lot. I think we'll hopefully see more Ultralisks. It means, like, as a Terran player, I have to make sure I've got Liberators or Marauders or Tanks, Vikings, anything that's got, like, anti-armor, basically. Or actually using this and then using the Raven's anti-armor missile is really good against them. Oh, this is a really big change. This is Nidus Network, Nidus Worm. So the actual Nidus Network that you build at your home is being increased in price. That's 200 minerals, 250 gas. That's a lot of gas. But the actual Nidus Worm that you can build is now 50-50. So it's gone down both gas and minerals. Okay, so that's super cheap. That makes a lot of sense. You know, they should be cheap. But now, while it's emerging, as you'll see in a minute, it's no longer invincible and instead has 6 armor. I find this really fascinating, this change. I mean, it makes sense to be able to attack it while it's burrowing, because it means if you've got heavy units there, that you can take them out. And like, you see, these Marines can just about kill that first one before everything starts popping out. I think this is really good. I think this is a really good change, because it now means that you're going to see more Nidus later on in the game, because Nidus really, like, for Zerg, is a really quick way of getting around the map. But it does now mean that Terran, or like, because if you see in the first video, they just dies instantly as soon as it pops out. So you either have it so that the enemy sees it, kills it straight away, or kills it while it's on that unburrowing. So I like this change. I think this change is really interesting. I want to see more of this. They do say in here about using it more late game, and I think that'd be really cool to see that used more. It's just another way of attacking, and I think it's really cool when you see Nidus Worms. Normally you just see them for either big, like, all-ins or like a sneaky little attack and stuff, and then that's it. But to actually see them, if they get more use out of this, I think it makes the games more interesting for sure. Burrow and Unburrow have been separated into 2 separate keys. Burrow and Unburrowed Zerg unit types will now be on the same tab select. Both will be selected with double clicking on units. Makes a lot of sense. It means you can at least burrow and unburrow certain things. More of an experimental change, but see how it goes. Protoss. Nexus Mass Recall renamed to Strategic Recall. Mothership Strategic Recall renamed to Mass Recall. Strategic Recall reduced cooldown from 130 seconds to 85. And Nexus, right, so basically what they're saying here is both the Mothership and the Nexus can recall, but the Mothership and Nexus have now switched the names around. So basically what they're saying is Strategic Recall, which is now on the Nexus, is reduced to 85 seconds, and you can now use, and it has a much smaller radius. So the idea is, and what they go on to say, is that it's better early game with Strategic Recall, because you can do like little hit and runs, but then the Mothership's Recall, which is now Mass Recall, is better for larger armies. This makes a lot of sense, I think. I think it'll be interesting to see if Protoss uses much more like, you know, kind of Zerg style, almost like little attacks from the left, from the right, calling back their army, sending them out again, calling back their army, you know, and being able to do like really annoying pokey stuff. Like this I think is a really interesting change. It'd be really fun to play around with these. Actually, I need to go on the testing patch to try this out. Sentry. Hallucination. Energy cost reduced from 170 to 100, from 100 to 75. Wow, I didn't even realise it was 100. That's expensive. 75 seems way, for what hallucination does, this seems way more reasonable. Guardian shield radius increased. Makes a lot of sense. You've got Protoss players relying on Stargate, you adapts. So you want hallucination to be, well, it used to be used all the time, didn't it? I remember back in the day. But now you've got Adepts and Stargate units coming out, and then Guardian shield with the more Zealot heavy popular choice now. So great changes, makes a lot of sense. Hallucination seems really expensive at 100. 75 seems way better. High Templar. Feedback damage reduced from 1 point per point of energy drain to 0.5. And this is going on about how the Ghost was changed, but the High Templar wasn't, so the High Templar could still kill the Ghosts. Now this kind of brings them in line with each other. This is less about killing and more about taking energy off of units. Interesting change. Not something I saw as a problem. Most of the time when I see High Templar, they just storm me. I don't get feedback too often. But maybe this is a real problem, and making it more about just taking energy away from units rather than killing them. Fair enough. I'm okay with this. Let's see how it goes. I don't know how it will affect Protoss, but robotics facility cost reduced from 200, 100 to 150, 100. Probably a good idea if it's a building that gets used a lot in Protoss. They do say about proxies, and we've seen quite a lot of proxies with it. It could potentially be a pain, but I say why not? This is the time to try stuff out, so do it. Colossus added turret tracking. Okay, this is basically, if you look at the top one, every time it stops and fires, it turns its head back. This one, on the other hand, when it stops, the turret just basically stays there. What they're doing is, like, units like siege tanks, and I can't remember what the other unit is, they do that already, so it means that as soon as they stop, they fire in the right direction, the turret isn't resetting. I don't know why this has only just been done to the Colossus. It makes so much sense. Hopefully it makes it easier for people to micro it. We'll see more Colossus. Always good. Disruptor. Okay, this is a big change. Purification Nova changed back to pre 4.0. So basically, the way that this works is you fire out the ball of energy and it will detonate after 2 seconds, dealing 155 damage and additional 55 to shield damage. So yeah, now at the moment when you do Purification Nova, you fire it out. As soon as it hits an enemy, it blows up. This is way back when they first introduced it. So you fire it out, you run the ball into the middle of the army, and then it'll blow up after 2 seconds. I think they're seeing this as the fact that you can use it in the old way to get behind the front line of enemies, and they go on to say about rather than like lurkers at the back, but when you're hitting zerglings and stuff. So that if you've got a bunch of hydras at the back and then in front of them are roaches, and you're trying to kill the hydras, the current ball of Nova would hit the roaches and not affect the hydras. Now you can pass it through them, so that means the enemy needs to split really well. I think the problem with disruptors is they're just a hard unit to use, full stop. Like, they do serious amounts of damage and they're a powerful unit, but like they are hard to use, and like when done right, I think they're amazing. But I think there might be the best way of using it, because I just think you need to have something so that it just flies off and blows up and like at least pushes the enemy back or forces them to move. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Tempest reduced from 300 200 to 250, so down by 50 and down by, is that 25 gas? Okay, it's still quite expensive, but supply reduced from 6 to 5 makes sense. Hit points and shield reduced from 300 150 to 150. Wow, that's half of its health. Crikey. Speed increased from 263 to 3.5. Acceleration increased. Oh wow, that gets moving. Let's have a look, see. This is the old ones, is it? I think this is the old ones. The Liberators on this side. Basically, you can have more of them and they'll kill off stuff quicker. This is an interesting change. I didn't think this is something that gets changed, but they say that they want it to be more like just a mobile platform, like an artillery weapon. And a lot of games with artillery weapons are quite weak. Some little problem I have with the siege tank, it being a tank, but apparently it's very weak. yeah, this is an interesting change. Hopefully it works out in the long run, and hopefully it's still really good. But I don't really know. Like, it's hard to say because I don't really use Tempest myself. I find them super slow. But if this is increasing the speed of them, then I might actually use more of them. And they're cheaper to get. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I am interested in seeing how this goes. Now we've got Carrier. So Graviton Catapult upgrade removed. Hit points and shields increased from 250 to 300 to 150. Oh, just by 50. Is that 50 hit points? Yeah. Build time decreased. Now this is the only thing that annoys me. It's like, now you've made them much quicker. Why have you made it quicker to get? Battlecruiser, I think, is higher than 86. I could be wrong. I can't remember what the Battlecruiser is, but I'm sure the Battlecruiser takes longer to build than the Carrier. But 64 seconds! Whew. Interceptor build time increased. Okay, so I see how they're balancing this out. These come out quicker, these come out longer. Interceptor damage decreased from 5x2 to 8x1, so it's just one shot. Interceptors will get plus 1x1 per air attack instead of 1x2. This is interesting because I think this whole thing is they want carriers out quicker, so it's less of a like win-all unit. They've got rid of Graviton Catapult, which is all about firing all the interceptors out rather than one at a time. Increased its health, and then made the interceptors actually slightly better because they're not doing 2 attacks, they're only doing 1. Interesting. I really don't know what to think of this. What have they said for this? The Carrier, we wanted to make the changes to allow players to show their skill in controlling this powerful capital ship. Carrier power is very front-loaded in terms of burst damage. Graviton Catapult upgrade will allow the carrier to deploy intercepts so easily. Oh, so yes, for like Hydralisk submarines have a little more chance of dealing with the interceptors. Yeah, I mean, give it a go, why not? Like, I like carriers anyway, I think they're a really cool unit. This is definitely an interesting change. Something I'm going to be looking into. Mothership. Time Warp now reduces attack speed of enemy units and structures by 50%. Yeah, this makes total sense. Mothership is such a late game unit. Like, having a Time Warp do that sounds insane. And it also means that if you see Time Warp come down, you've got to get out of there. So I say yes. This is absolutely yes. Make it so that when you've got it now, bang. And that gives Protoss, if you have got the Mothership, gives them an ability that's actually useful. Because slowing stuff down by 50% is fine. But if the attack speed's still the same, then they can still do quite a bit of damage. Now people have to see this and be like, no, we've got to get out of this. Shield Battery. Shield Battery Restore will now work on units under the effect of... Oh, I see. So yeah, this is similar to what the Medevacs were saying, that you can now use the beam. While they're under Graviton Beam, you can still give them shield back. This will make probably Phoenix... It's saying about Phoenix plays? Low numbers of Phoenix. Yeah. Makes sense. The Simulator. Health and shields reduced from 450 to 300. Lowering the overall life of simulators brings them more line with revive. I didn't even know that flipping simulators had more HP, so interesting. Oh, this is a cool change. Once Warp Gate research is complete, newly built gateways will automatically transform into Warp Gates on completion. Such a good change, makes so much sense. Like, ideally, once Warp Gate research is done, newly built gateways are always transformed into Warp Gates. This isn't the most strategic or mechanically intensive decision, testing it out. I think this is a really good idea, and I hope that they stick with this because, quite frankly, it just makes sense. As a Protoss player, once you've got gateway, why the flipping hell are you going to build warp gates once you've got... why would you build gateways and not have warp gates? You know, like, I absolutely do it. And then there's a countdown thing there, but they're saying at the bottom here as well, you know, this is their first pass at change, this isn't final. Overall, like, these changes aren't bad, but they're maybe not what I wanted to see personally. I think the Widowmine one is my favourite, the Battlecruiser one I want to see, same with the Tempest and the Carrier. I think some of the buffs and things and nerfs they've added, like the Raven being more effective against shields now, which is really good. Mothership having this is really good. I think Protoss and Tyrant have the most changes. Like, Zerg have got like a minus health buff to the what's it called, Hydralisk. They've got all the stuff about Burrow and Nihilus Worms. Like, there's definitely some interesting stuff going on here. I'm glad I've waited until now to go through all this. It definitely wouldn't have been a good idea to do this the other day when I was very tilted after watching WCS. But honestly, like, I look forward to seeing these changes in action. I do like it when they mix up the meta. Maybe this isn't as quite as strong as I wanted, because I wanted to see some things change, mainly because I don't like TVC at all at the moment, but that's just my own, my own bias. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, this is something a little bit different than I thought I'd do. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, hit like and subscribe. If you want to talk to me about this, then feel free to put some comments in the below box. And until next time, I will see you then.